Sekeres and Price for Friday, November 14th, 2025, and a presentation of Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio here at the historic Wall Center. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Matt Sekeres with Jeff Paterson sitting in for Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches and conducting things. We got a big show for you. First, thank you for pinch hitting today. Good to see you. Good to host with you. Of course,
sure.
You'll be busy this weekend. Rink-wide Vancouver after the 4 p.m. start today in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then another matinee affair on Sunday from Tampa. So Jeff and Irf and the Rink-wide crew will be busy. Thank you for coming on in early. Yes, we are endeavoring to go 10 a.m. for these 4 p.m. starts that the Canucks have when they're in the Eastern time zone. So we got one today and we got one on Monday against Florida as well. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Looking forward to what should be an eventful road trip. Compressed schedule, 3 and 4, long way from home. A little bit of good news that Quinn Hughes was on the ice this morning. We'll see if he plays tonight. Obviously, they're more entertaining. And a better hockey club when the captain is in there. And we saw the other night, left briefly, but came back and looked really good in the third period. So fingers crossed for Quinn that he can be a part of the proceedings in Carolina. They're going to need him against a really good Carolina hockey club.
One of the things that we were considering for the Redwoods Golf Course poll question today, these are three pretty good teams. I mean, I realize the Florida Panthers are not the defending two-time Stanley Cup champions in terms of the lineup they will put on the ice Monday with no Alexander Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk. Tampa, of course, recent Stanley Cup champion. And, of course, Carolina, who's typically right there at the top of the East as well. Do the Canucks playoff hopes survive this roadie, Jeff? Like, what do you think? Do they need 3 out of the 6 to stay alive in the play? Look, they're only a few points back. That much, the math isn't too daunting from that point of view. It gets a little more daunting when you consider the number of teams that are involved here. And one of the things that has kept them in touching distance and has made this 8-9-1 start not as extreme as it could be is the fact that we have a whole lot of mediocre, mushy middle in the NHL. More on that with Jeff Marek later in the program. But JPat, you tell me there's 3 back right now with 5 teams to jump, and still more road games than home games. 9 road games to 8 home games. Sorry, no, it's 9-9 now. Actually, even split. And of course, they've been better on the road than at home for the last year and a bit. But you tell me, what do you think they need to survive playoff positioning-wise?
Yeah, well, they've been over 500 in both of the road trips so far, the 5-gamer and the 3-gamer. So could they squeeze 2 wins out of these 3? That might be asking too much. 3 points out of the 3 games, I think, bare minimum. So a win and an overtime loss somewhere along the line here. We'll see. As you said, Tampa, it's back-to-back for the Bolts on Sunday. So the Canucks catch a little bit of a break even as a road team. Yep. And then the Panthers. Good win for them over the Washington Capitals last night, but still, missing all sorts of pieces there. I think the Florida Panthers get the benefit of the doubt that after 2 straight wins of the Cup and a trip to the final, I think they know that November hockey isn't not, it's not the be-all and end-all for them. So,
although they're like way down the Eastern Conference standings because of who's out there. I mean, way down. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. They're kind of like the Vancouver of the East right now. They're not that far out of a playoff spot. They just got a bunch of teams ahead of them. The other thing that we're going to be looking at here in short order, Jeff, is games played, where the Canucks have played an NHL high 18 games right now. So you're 1 point behind Vegas. They got 3 games in hand.
And that's why I wouldn't look at the gap from where the Canucks are to the playoff bar. I look at the big picture hockey math of how do they get to 94, 96 points. And this team that has been the definition of 500 through the injuries, through the travel, Won 3 in a row at one point, but followed it up with 3 straight losses. And so that kind of comes right back to one step forward, one step back. Again, this idea that they are going to get on one of those incredible hot streaks that most playoff-bound teams get on, even when they get healthy bodies back, I'm still not convinced that the ceiling for this team is all that high.
Yeah.
So
let me correct myself. 2 games in hand Vegas has over the Canucks. So it's 5 teams to jump, including the Chicago Blackhawks with 20 points, who are the last playoff team right now. They have a game in hand against the Canucks as well. So 3 back with 5 teams to jump. But as you say, the point totals matter as much as the standings and the games played at this point in the season. All right. Yeah. One thing I'll say, Jeff, if they get swept out of this road trip, boy, if you think you're hearing rebuild talk right now, if they come out of this road trip with 1 point or no points.
Well, we just went through that where, Bedard comes to town, the Blackhawks beat the Canucks. That's when the rebuild talk last week went through the roof. And then they followed it up with a decent win against Columbus and got a single point and were plucky against Colorado. And that sort of tempered some of that talk again.
Stem the tide.
But then they lose to the Jets and the injuries to Demko and others. And so I'm sort of with you that if it goes completely sideways this weekend, it probably takes us back to where the market was a week ago.
Which brings us to the Redwoods Golf Course poll question. Do you believe this Canucks ownership will ever allow a rebuild? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. This is coming out of Ian McIntyre's interview with Jim Rutherford, and we're going to dig into that here in a moment. But there was a comment, and frankly, a really good question from Ian to Rutherford. There was a comment that I think some people are missing. The question, and it's right at the bottom of this column, even if you wanted to do a rebuild, would your owner allow it? And Rutherford said, to this point, I've had total freedom to do what I want. Francesco has been very supportive from day one. From the time he met me and hired me, he hasn't interfered. He has left it in my hands. Now, there are many examples earlier in the column where Rutherford says he's not going to rebuild. But, Jeff, to me, the operative phrase here was to this point.
Yes.
Because Mike Gillis and Trevor Linden each had their own freedoms when they were running Canucks hockey operations until the point came where they suggested an action plan of rebuild, and then guess what? They weren't in charge anymore. So answer me the poll question and tell me what you read into that Rutherford comment about ownership allowing a rebuild.
To the poll question, do I think this organization will ever allow one?
This owner.
This owner.
Well,
I don't see them getting sold anytime soon. So I'm going to say at some point, yes, that this ownership group will recognize that the last 15 years ain't it. The way they've been conducting business hasn't led them anywhere aside from the 150-win season. And, 2 rounds of the playoffs was fun. Like, how do you get more of that? But for the most part, it has been a very dark decade. So really, the path that they've been traveling here and constantly chasing this idea of just squeezing into the playoffs. Like, as much as I want them to win a Stanley Cup, and I think most people in this market do, I would settle for being a playoff team every year for 6 or 8 years. Like the Carolina Hurricanes have won a playoff round 7 straight years, every year that Rod Brind'Amour has been there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about the consistency there. Do they have the Stanley Cup to show for it yet? Not in this iteration. Yeah, they won the Cup way back when. But still, like, to be a perennial playoff team and get at least one round, you know what that does? That puts playoff revenue in the owner's pocket. It keeps the fan base excited. It raises the standards on a regular basis. Matt, I've made this point before. I think on this show, I've had this conversation. I talked with Rick talking about this last year. He's not here anymore. But Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin aren't responsible for what came before them. But they inherited a fan base that is getting angrier by the year. And so when they say, oh, well, it's only been 4 years, fair enough. they've only been on the job 4 years. This fan base has had to deal with 55 years of failure. And people want to see them get it right at some point here.
Yeah, and it's a very tricky thing. And like an old wise guy like Jim Rutherford knows this. I would wonder how acute it would be with Patrick Alvin is you're not responsible for the history, but you have to own it. Like you have to realize that history does not begin when you arrive on the spot. That the market, the fan base, your customers will have gone through things that become part of club culture, club lore, club DNA that you have to be attuned to. And we're going to talk more about this when we get into Rutherford's comments to IMAC, because to me, it's all starting to sound a little Benning-esque.
Yeah.
I am also answering yes on the poll question, Jeff. We're both counterintuitive on this poll question. Here's the one scenario where I can see Francesco Aquilini greenlighting a rebuild. Quinn Hughes tells them at the end of this season, I'm out. I want to trade. Get rid of me. They continue to look for an investor to buy out Paolo Aquilini's share fruitlessly. And then they make the decision, let's take it down to the studs, cut operating costs as much as possible to attract a buyer. One can only hope. But that's the scenario by which I could see this ownership group greenlighting a rebuild if they're on their way out the door. So, voting at Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. Our friends at the Redwoods specialize in custom corporate events. They have beautiful facilities there to put on whatever kind of event you're so looking to do, including if you want to have some fun, get out on the golf range, do some golf lessons, hit some balls as part of your event. They've got that available to you with their PGA of Canada teaching professional Craig. They've got the large heated covered driving range, so it goes all the way through the winter. You'll be comfortable. Food and beverage component afterwards as well. And if you have children ages 6 to 16, set them up with the sport of a lifetime. This guy was a junior competitive golfer once upon a time, and he's still playing it into his 50s. Set him up for the sport of a lifetime, private and semi-private. Lessons available at the Redwoods. Go to redwoods-golf.com. When did you first put a club in your hand? What age?
Oh, probably 8. My grandfather got my brothers and I going.
So it was your grandfather who was the catalyst to all that?
Yeah. My dad didn't play till he was about 40. And so there was probably a decade there where it was my grandfather who played a lot, got the grandsons going. And then Dad was like, hey, I guess I got to get in on this.
If I want to spend time with them.
He got bitten by the bug and hasn't looked back. But
yeah. I am forever amazed, Jeff, because number one, it's generational. Once Tiger came around, suddenly all these young kids were picking up golf clubs at driving ranges on the course. I mean, still from time to time, I'll go out and play around somewhere in the Lower Mainland and, paired with 2 14-year-olds who were hitting the ball past you.
Sure.
The other thing, growing up in Eastern Canada, it was a shorter golf season. It was pretty competitive for tee times. Like, I don't remember my friend group outside of a couple of guys playing as young people. It was more a sport for older teenagers. You got into it at 18, 21, 40 as your dad did. But now it's just incredible how many young people are picking up golf, how many you see on the golf course, how many you see dropped off at the golf course in the summer to
and then
balls all
COVID
day.
Started it again.
Absolutely.
Another way.
Everybody who had ever picked up a club.
Get outside.
Yeah, exactly. It was 4.5 hours outside that you could do safely distanced. So, yeah, get those kids out there at the Redwoods for private and semi-private lessons. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Jimmy talks, no rebuild, not trading young roster players or Braden Coots. Have to be mindful 2026 is a good draft. So, hope remains the plan. Hope to get healthy. Hope to stay in striking distance of a playoff spot. Until then, hope to get a center. Rutherford tells Sportsnet's Ian McIntyre that, quote, the best case scenario is we get our players back, we stick with the priority we've had for 6 months to get another center, and then we see where we're at. Take a run at making the playoffs, and if you get in the playoffs, you just never know. Who does that sound like, Jeff? McIntyre asks, well, if that doesn't work, Jimmy, quote, then the downside of it is stay the course, stick with what I just said, and we miss the playoffs. So we win the lottery, get a top 5 pick, and keep building a team that is relatively young where most of our players are in their 20s. Just keep adding good players.
Hold up. You win the lottery and get a top 5 pick?
That's not even the lottery format anymore, Jim.
You win one of 2 lotteries and
get a
you
top
get
2 pick.
A top 2 pick.
Plus, you can't plan on winning the lottery.
Also, you can't move up more than 10 spots.
That's right.
So if you are in the mushy middle.
Well, maybe that's what he's forecasting. We're going to be 15th from the bottom, win the lottery, and get to the top 5, Jeff. Honestly, there have been very few things out of Rutherford's mouth since he got here that I think demonstrated his age. I believe he's 77 in February. This was one. This is one where I went, okay, what's the old man talking about there? So we win the lottery and get a top 5 pick.
I mean, that would be the most Canuck thing ever, to win the lottery and jump 10 spots
it would,
into
of course.
top 5 in Gavin McKenna's draft
That's
year.
right. Vancouver, one of a few franchises to never pick first overall. Have they picked second? Oh, yes, of course. Well, was that an Indigenous pick with Hank and Danny? No, they had to move up for that pick, right? Anyways, I mentioned it's all starting to sound Benning-esque. We're going to get into more of these comments, Jeff, but just what was your feel of the overall tone of Rutherford in this?
Well, I read this, but I kind of lump it in with Patrick Alvin's appearance on After Hours last weekend, and clearly they sing from this same hymn book right now about, well, you can't have a rebuild because there's no guarantee that you're going to find quality players in the draft. But Alvin also on After Hours talked about the work that his scouts had done to unearth Arshdeep Bains and Max Sasson. So you're praising your scouts on one hand, but they've both now said that, oh no, you can't rebuild because there's no guarantee that you replace your quality players with other quality players. That doesn't seem like the approach that I would take if I'm going into a rebuild. It is of the belief that you're tearing it down, but you are going to build it back up. I mean, of course, there's always uncertainty in the draft, but there's not a lot of uncertainty, I don't think, around a player like Gavin McKenna. Now, there's no guarantees that they flat out win the lottery and start the rebuild with that player in particular, but it feels like a defeatist attitude to say, well, you can't build it now because you might not hit on those lottery picks. So, you know, I mean, when I see them both saying that in different places, it suggests to me that they've kind of had this discussion about the messaging that they want to get out to the market. And yet, I'm not sure that I would put this in the successful messaging category. The article.
No, I think both men have swung and missed this week. Alvin and Rutherford, and incidentally, Nedved, Linden, Talon, all Indigenous number 2 overalls. How could I forget? Rutherford, quote, a rebuild is not something that we're going to look at doing. Like I said, we're in transition, but we're not trading all these players for draft picks that may or may not end up playing someday. He says if they do move a young roster player, because he said DPD, Tom Villander, and Braden Coots are basically untouchable. He says if they do move a young roster player or Coots, it would have to be for a player 25 years old or younger. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Getting a 25 or under centerman who is worth one of those guys, it's going to be difficult. He said the club expected injuries with the compressed schedule, but nothing like this. He mentioned that Filipino was the only center available in a JT Miller trade. He said he didn't expect acquiring another center to take this long, but the prices are too high. Jeff, did Rutherford snooker the organization with his more expensive not to comment?
Yeah,
like we applauded the honesty
sure
of it all, because he saw what we saw, and I think anytime you can connect on the same wavelength and tell the fans what you see, and it aligns as perfectly as that comment, I think you get ahead with your customers. But I'm also wondering whether if he just signaled to every other general manager, all 31 of them, put the screws to us on a center because we know we've got to get one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to dig into in this piece, and one of the ones that he talks about JT Miller and the fact they were on the right track, and then he says, and when JT got traded, we were set back. Hang on a sec. You're trading this guy, and we were led to believe that you got all these pieces that were going to help you continue along the track you were on. But he also says, if you look at our lineup now, we've got sometimes 6, 7 first-year players in our lineup. Name them. Who are the 6 and 7? Tom Willander's a first-year player. Like, all these other guys have touched the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's considering guys like
Baines and Sasson and Carlson and...
Yeah, Sasson would certainly qualify, but yeah, you're right. I mean, technically not first-year players. I mean, Ratu's
they cling to this idea of, like, young, and I get, like, overall...
But it's for the most part, it's a young bottom six. It's Tom Willander, Lekramacky when he's there, and right now he's in
But even
Abbotsford.
at that, Matt, like young
It's a
bottom
young-
six,
it's a young bottom
they're 25. They're inexperienced, but they're not young
Fair
by
enough.
NHL.
Fair enough.
And
Yeah, I mean, Sasson, Carlson, 25. Archdeep's 24.
and all those guys,
Ratu's young.
They're still trying to claw out full-time NHL careers. And I would say that of all those Abbotsford guys, like the organization had to have hoped that one of them was going to have popped a little bit more offensively.
Yeah. Willander and DPD are the young guys at the back, but
And Mancini's still
yeah,
young.
sure.
But he, too, has played in the NHL. So I guess I'm taking issue with the first-year semantics here.
Well, it's semantical, but also it's a little bit of spin on his part.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. More Jimmy. Quote, we're kind of caught in between right here, right now. I believe our organization has done a good job in building up the pipeline of younger players. Don't at me, Jeff. Do we want to give those up now, or do we want to keep building? He asked. He would continue right now as we speak. I would say we stay the course with developing our young players and getting our injured players back in the lineup and continue to look for that center. We still really don't know what we've got because we haven't had a full lineup. I guess I can give him that last comment. No, you don't really know what you've got because you haven't had all your best players together in the same lineup pretty much since the jump.
But
we can throw him that bone, right? Like we can say
yes,
that part is
but even
accurate.
that comes with a bit of a qualifier in that, like, Teddy Bluger will help the penalty kill.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that,
Filipidals should help a lot of things.
well,
but
I put him in a separate silo now.
Okay.
Like, I'm not convinced that we're ever seeing Filipidal again in the NHL for his own health and well-being. But, like, they got Quinn Hughes back from injury. Connor Garland missed a couple games. He's back. Like, Lekramaki's going to go and play in Abbotsford. So, like, yes, there are still guys. Now, Demko's on the shelf, obviously. But outside of Demko, like, the guys that they're waiting to come back, I don't know that you call any of them impact players. Can they help this hockey club? Sure. They make them better in areas.
yeah, like
I want to see Nils Höglander get back there, but do they get the 8-goal Nils Höglander back?
or
do
the
they get
24 goal. No,
Like,
I know. And if it's somewhere in between, then again, that's not a most impactful player. I would argue, if I'm being kind to them, Jeff, I would argue getting Bluger and Forbert back in conjunction should absolutely help the penalty kill.
But Forbert's on LTIR. Like, he may – nobody seems to know, but
I mean, that –
I don't know when we're expecting to see him back. So,
okay, but
I get the theory of getting those guys back should help, but
the
Bluger
theory
at
of
some
getting
point-
those two guys back, you're better on the penalty kill. You've dropped a lot of games here, close games, because you've been dreadful on the penalty kill.
But Forbert may be gone for a while at this stage. He's on LTIR, and I haven't seen him around the rink in ages. So I think they've got to get by this notion of, oh, we'll just count down the days until these penalty-killing saviors come back. Bluger is going to come back, yes, although not on this road trip, we don't believe. So the guys that they've got have to figure, like, it's as simple as they've got to figure it out. They can't keep killing penalties at 66%.
On the penalty kill, And this was another, I thought, very good and pointed question from Ian McIntyre, and this was another head-scratching answer from Rutherford. Jeff and I think, are aligned on the two answers that we thought were just they were just non sequiturs. They just didn't make any sense, or at least not the way, at least not with the detail or lack of detail that Jim provided. One was on win the lottery and get a top 5 pick. We're like, what the hell is he talking about? And then there was this one when McIntyre asked him about the penalty kill and whether losing Pius Suter, who was a primary penalty killer for them last year, was a mistake. Rutherford said, quote, "He was a guy that we thought we were still in on when he went to St. Louis, and I know he wanted to come back here." That's important because a lot of people have said, "Oh, Suter didn't want to come back. Why are you pitting him against Evander, saying it was one or the other? Suter didn't want to come back." No, Rutherford confirmed he wanted to come back. He continued, "There seemed to be some miscommunication on term, what it eventually ended up. We would have considered bringing him back," and McIntyre brackets, "for longer than 2 years, but it didn't work out." Huh? So
when you're negotiating a contract with a free agent, there's essentially two things. There's term and there's money.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's trade protection and stuff too, but how did we confuse 3 years? Like, how did Pius Suter and the agent not get the message you were willing to go to 3 years? One more year than St. Louis went.
And so ultimately what happened?
That's pretty simple stuff. That's either 2 or that's like we can all count.
So Suter signs in St. Louis, and apparently the Canucks ran out of time? Are we back to
Jeff.
that? Come on.
He was a guy that we thought we were still in on when he went to St. Louis. And I know he wanted to come back here. There seemed to be some miscommunication on term. So the only way that I can interpret that is that the Canucks were only willing to go to 3 years at some late hour or minute in free agency and didn't get that communicated to Suter's agent prior to him agreeing with the Blues. And is that the logical conclusion out of...
I think Suter's got one of those agents that's got like 2 or 3 clients. Like, this isn't like you couldn't reach Pat Person because he had 15 different irons in the fire on July 1st. I don't know. Like, when I read that, I really had to do a double take.
No, honestly, I'm sitting here scratching my head going, like, I can't think of a logical explanation to that.
This was your own player, too. That's the other thing. Like, you had months to lay out your plans.
Right.
Like,
so the only thing I can think of is the Bullets are flying in free agency, Jeff, and of course, remember they had the Brock Besser situation, so they may have been so engaged in that they didn't, in due time, communicate to Suter and his agent that we're willing to go to 3 years. Because clearly, if you're willing to go to 3 years, you were willing to go to more total money than what Suter got from St. Louis.
Were they
and unless it was super lowball on the AAV, if he wanted to come back here, then he absolutely would have signed that, right? You beat the St. Louis offer. He wants to come back here. You beat it on term at the very least, if not on AAV. He's a Vancouver Canuck today. That was very confusing.
Did he? I'm just looking. Like, he signed on July 3rd, so he wasn't even one of the first ones out of the gate on July 1st. They were busy.
So it's not even that.
Twisting to get Demko and Garland and Besser done. There was time here, but again, he was their own player. Like, they should have had every scenario laid bare on the table in the weeks leading up to free agency.
Having a Dave Hodge moment here, Jeff.
Yeah. Miscommunication.
Oh, man. I mean, that's another one, Jeff, where because of the history in the market, we ran out of time. I would wonder if they know that, but that's what it sounds like to a Canucks fan when they read that
for sure.
On Pius Suter.
For sure.
Oh, and here's the last one of the holy trinity of answers that didn't make sense to me. and again, another good question here from Ian McIntyre. He's asked, there's a series of questions about Quinn Hughes' future, needless to say. And one of the questions revolves around I'll read the question that Sportsnet published. Will Hughes' decision next summer, whether to re-sign with the Canucks or ask out to play with his brothers, determine which direction the team building takes? Rutherford, no, I don't think so. I think as long as we stay the course and keep getting younger players that we feel will play in the NHL and contribute to a team that can become a consistent playoff team and a contender, then that's what we would do. How could Hughes' future not affect team building? It's the best. He's your best player. He's arguably the best defenseman of the world. He's either a massive, massive cap commitment going forward if he resigns, or he's a massive, massive trade chip. And I don't doubt that he could add a lot of young players who could contribute to the NHL, but clearly that affects team building and team direction, no? What am I missing there, Jeff? Can you interpret this?
No, I've had trouble making sense of a lot of these answers here. And in this one, he's talking about being a consistent playoff team and a contender that we pointed to earlier. But then there's a later answer about, just hope that we get into the playoffs and see what happens. So it feels like talking out of both sides of the mouth here in terms of the direction of the hockey club. And, of course, this is a question about life without Quinn Hughes. I don't know.
Honestly,
I'm at a bit of a loss.
And honestly, I have I have really enjoyed listening to Jim Rutherford lay out the Canucks world according to Jim over his is it 3 years now, Jeff?
4. Coming up on 4.
4 in December.
In a month.
Yeah. I have really enjoyed listening to the Canucks world according to Jim over these 4 years. He has been the most candid, the most honest general manager that I've ever covered here in Vancouver. You can speak to Berkey. So I've enjoyed that. I think at different times over the course of 4 years, he's been as effective a communicator with Canucks Sports Entertainment as I've been around in 18 years covering the team. Again, you can speak to guys before that. And I think he has done a really great job, all told, in terms of messaging to the fans and creating sort of a line of communication and a line of trust with the fans. Because let's face it, more often than not, when he has said something, they've put their money where his mouth is. They've acted on it. You think back to the trade for Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. He has forecasted a lot of things about what the club needs to do, plans to do, and then they've gone out and delivered. This more expensive not to center thing would be the exception. And I think you can argue, and I know there was the one press conference where what did he say? And then he later came back and said, I have to zip it.
Right, and said that he was going to step away from speaking publicly for a while.
And did for a bit, but then has come back.
There was the extraordinary medical press conference, too, after the whole Tanner Pearson thing.
Oh, right. That one, if that had been with a player who factored more prominently, that might be front of mind. But honestly, I think the bottom line, what I'm trying to say, I think you could look at this, read it, and say this is his worst moment as a communicator with Canucks Sports Entertainment.
Yeah, I would say that, and I agree with almost everything you said there, but ultimately these guys were brought in to build a contender, and I think that context has to matter, that they're nowhere close to being a contender now. And I think it's fair to ask, is the organization any further ahead in those 4 years than it was when they took over and inherited what looked like a damn good core, a promising core? And they've gutted the center of the ice. They've addressed defense. But through it all, they're judged by the product they put on the ice, and the product on the ice this year has been okay at best.
Yeah.
And all of this is done with the notion that the best defender and arguably the best player in franchise history has a toe out the door. And so, the comments about be more expensive not to, and then not following up and having the summer that they did, and then this kind of stuff, like, I don't know, the worm seems to be turning a little bit in terms of the popular opinion.
Oh, for sure.
Out in the market, and you can feel the frustration, and that's why the whole rebuild thing exploded last week.
I think more of the market is now against this management team than with this management team. We started to see the seeds of this last year, and I think now the needle has moved to the other side. Winning can fix that. Winning can fix a lot. The Zip It comment came after public criticisms of Bruce Boudreau when they ultimately fired Boudreau, of course.
There was that whole dog and pony show of a year.
Yeah, I mean, that was just absolutely botched, handled horribly, but I think their hands were tied again by the owner there, who was very, very late to greenlight firing that coach. Like, he was very, very late to moving on from Jim Benning and that era. No, Jeff, I think things. Look, and these are guys who think it's been noisy already. Like, if this team continues to lose from here, if you are approaching a trade deadline where the playoffs are a distant hope or unlikely, or use whatever word you think best fits that spectrum, and you're not willing to trade UFAs and trade out guys with a year left on their contract for young players, picks, prospects for a brighter day. Like, if you have last year's deadline again with a team that's even further out of the playoffs, I'm not sure that is going to be tenable going forward. I would suspect something would have to be done there. And wouldn't necessarily be Rutherford Alvin's fault if it's ownership's directive. But as we saw, Gillis walked the plank, Linden left. Ultimately, don't fire owners. One other thing, because I got a very terse note yesterday from one of our long-standing and regular listeners, shout out Mike Allen, who's a youth hockey coach, minor hockey coach. He was very upset that Blake and I said Quinn Hughes the best player in franchise history. Now, if anyone else was upset with that from yesterday, don't for a second think we're saying Quinn Hughes has had a better career than Daniel Sedin, Henrik Sedin, or Pavel Bure. That's unequivocal. They're Hall of Famers. Quinn's on that trajectory. And our point was, if you're starting a team tomorrow with prime, put every player in Canucks history in their prime, who are you taking? Blake and I both said Quinn.
Yeah, I think if individually you just look at the impact and the way when at the peaks of their game, any one player was able or has been able to impact a hockey game, I think on that measure, Quinn is right up there with those others. But there is a longevity aspect to it, certainly, that he hasn't accomplished just yet. And Pavel,
also, he hasn't done much winning.
There's that too.
You were going to say about Pavel?
No, Pavel was, he was a shooting star, obviously, here in the brief time. Like, he impacted games unlike anybody else, but again, did it over such a brief period of time. We all wish that it had lasted longer at his heights, but it didn't. And so, yeah, I would still rank Quinn behind those three, as you said, their banners, the Hall of Fame, all that kind of stuff. He is very much headed in that direction, but has to see his career through still.
I once saw Pavel Bure impact a game as a penalty killer down in Florida versus the Leafs. He's playing the top of the diamond on the PK, Jeff. And to say that he was cheating and looking for the breakaway would be a disservice to the word
Standing
cheating.
At center ice with a stick in the air.
Beyond cheating. And for some reason, the two Leaf power play defensemen, because remember, you played two defensemen back then on the power play, were passing the puck back and forth with each other. Pat Quinn is going insane on the bench. You can just tell Pat's going, what are these guys doing? Sure enough, lazy pass. Pavel pokes it to center. You're not catching him.
No.
Then he's one-on-one with the goalie. Yellow Dog has released Starborn Kolsch Style. His brew features 4 lucky furry friends from the Make My Pet a Yellow Dog Brewing Star contest. It's Aardvark, Mr. Eyeball, Ben, and Lizzie. Adorable, all of them. Through this collaborative fundraiser with the BC SPCA, Yellow Dog raised a total of $265,000. Congratulations to a fantastic cause. Everybody raised their Kolsch to Starborn and the beautiful animals supporting the BC SPCA. That's a fantastic initiative Yellow Dog
Dog's
does each
name is
and every
Aardvark?
year. Apparently.
I like it.
So well done, Melinda, Mike Coghill, and all our friends at Yellow Dog. There's game today. I know that. You know that. This guy's got to work it. In Carolinas, 4 p.m. start. Quinn Hughes skated this morning. He's a game-time decision. Pierre-Olivier Joseph would replace if the captain can't go. Lankinen to start, playing his 5th straight game, 4th start, minus Thatcher Demko. Yuri Patera is the backup. If I can ask you this, because Blake and I had a pretty good debate on this yesterday. I'm of the opinion that if you put a year plus into Yuri Patera and you're carrying him as your 3rd string goalie because he's got NHL experience, then you have to be willing to play him at some point. Blake was of the opinion, no, if Lankinen looks good, you play him for all 3 games. What says you?
I think Patera will play, and I think he might play sooner than people think. Like, I think he might play the Sunday game in Tampa.
Yep.
Tampa plays the day before down in Florida. Unlikely that Vasilevsky would play both of those games, so it might be a backup versus a 3rd-string guy. Tampa's not the powerhouse. They've got all kinds of injuries right now, and that would give Lankinen then an extra day of rest because those games are back-to-back Sunday and Monday. If he doesn't play Tampa, then I would think at the end of the road trip, maybe you go with Lankinen in the first 2 and take your chances on getting some points and then roll the dice. But it's not fair to Kevin Lankinen. As much as he wants to be the starter, that doesn't mean playing every single game. And I looked at it yesterday, like after the 4 Nations. Remember Thatcher pulled himself out of a game against Toronto and the 4 Nations break, and then we didn't see him for another month after that.
Right.
Kevin Lankinen at one point started 6 in a row, 11 of 12. And during that run, his save percentage, it went down to like 875 or something.
We mentioned it a couple of times.
Every guy's got a limit. Like, they're elite athletes, but they're not superheroes. And you can't play every game in the NHL. And so you're right. They signed Patera because they saw something there. They believed he had 8 games of NHL experience down in Vegas. Mm-hmm. And he got hurt last year. Last year was basically a write-off for him. But part of the reason they went out and got Lankinen, Matt, was, and you guys were there in Penticton, he couldn't stop a puck in his first training camp with the guy. He had a dreadful first training camp. And Artur Silovs wasn't a whole lot better, and I think the team went into panic mode, recognized that Demko wasn't going to be available until December. They needed somebody that could stop pucks, and that's why they went and they made the phone call and brought Lankinen in. But this time around, Patera's training camp wasn't a whole lot better. He didn't see a period of preseason action. Like, he was a total afterthought. And the only reason he's up right now is because Nikita Tolopilo has been hurt down on the farm for 3 weeks and is getting closer, but isn't quite ready yet. And so if Tolopilo had been totally healthy, he would have been up and as the backup over Yuri Patera. I'm pretty certain. But right now the Canucks are in a bind with their goaltending, and so I think Patera will play at some point in one of the games in Florida.
Okay, the devil's advocate, the Blake position would be he played just 5 games all of last year.
Yeah, he was hurt. It wasn't because of poor performance that they refused to play him. He got hurt.
Sorry. That was 5 games this year. It was 7 games last year. My bad.
Yeah. And so, by all accounts, on a bad Abbotsford team, he's been okay in the games that he's played. But the AHL is one thing. This is the National Hockey League, and this is where he wants to be. But they went out and signed him and gave him a 2-year contract. Like, clearly they had some sort of belief, and I think the story goes that this is back when people listened to Ian Clark in that front office, and that Ian saw something there that he thought maybe with some molding and some hands-on work that they could build Yuri Patera back up. And then Ian was sort of pushed aside, doesn't have the say that he once did, and then Patera was gone and out of sight, out of mind for all of last year. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you.
There's another part of this, too, is that, there were the reports early from Frank that 2 to 3 weeks for Demko, but the Hockey Club hasn't said a word about Thatcher Demko. And they haven't even confirmed week to week or lower body.
You asked them last night.
I asked yesterday for an on-the-record, just give me the official team party line here. If it's week to week, fine, but they're saying nothing. And by doing that, they choose to ignore it, bury their head in the sand,
but
and think
they're supposed to say something today, are they not?
That's the hope, but time will tell.
I thought you got confirmation there would be an update.
I was told there would be an update. We'll see if the update materializes. But through all of this is that if Demko's out, and there's quite a possibility that this could go beyond 2 to 3 weeks, the schedule settles down next week with the 2 home games, but then there's a 4-game road trip after that includes 3 and 4 and another back-to-back. Again, Lankinen can't play them all. And so I think you can't run the risk of injuring him or running him into the dirt. So I think you have to find a couple of starts here for Jiri Patera. Or maybe one for Patera, and maybe Tolopilo is getting close enough that he could work his way back and be an option by the end of the month. Who knows? Again, not getting a lot of updates on the goaltender injuries right now.
There were several occasions last year when Rick Tocchet talked about needing to get Lankinen rest, saying that his level dropped off if he overplayed him. Adam Foote was around for all of that, Jeff, so I'm sure he took that lesson as well. I'm with you. I think we're going to see Patera here. It's only a matter of time. Ex-Toronto and Chicago centerman David Kampf clears waivers. Well, he's on waivers. And for another 13 minutes or so? So here's the thing. Leafs don't want him anymore. He's already cleared waivers, so he's now below the NHL roster bar. This is for the purposes of contract termination. So if you liked David Kampf and you were going to make a waiver claim, you already had that opportunity, meaning he is most likely to clear here. If you did want this current David Kampf with this current contract, it's this year and next year at $1.25 million. But if he does get the contract terminated, Jeff, then he is free to sign with anyone for whatever.
Yeah, fell out of favor. Not Craig Berube's guy, clearly, in Toronto. I think Berube plays the game or played the game a certain style and wants his teams to play that way. David Kampf's not an in-your-face. He's not a physical guy. But in 7 of his 8 years in the NHL, Matt, he's held a better than 50% win rate in the face-off circle, which, look where the Canucks are. He could help there. And he led all Leaf penalty killers forwards in penalty killing ice time last year. They were a middle-of-the-pack penalty killing team. Oh, what we'd give to see a middle-of-the-pack penalty killing team here in Vancouver. So I think there are ways that David Kampf could help. In my mind, a 1-year prorated contract for the rest of the year. No term here.
No, of course not. Of course not.
If there's another team that wants to give him term, he's there. But if you could get him at or around league minimum, and if he looks around at opportunities, if this is about rehabilitating, and we saw Brandon Saw do this last year, had his contract terminated in St. Louis, winds up in Vegas, and looked like an NHL player again. If David Kampf wants an opportunity, there are better teams out there. There may not be a better opportunity for a centerman to step into an NHL lineup right now and make some sort of impact. So,
of course not. The one thing I'll say, because we say this all the time, if you can bury the entirety of the contract in the minors, then go ahead and give him term. And 1.25 is right there. So if you wanted to give him term, a second year, to ensure you get the player, but it's at a compensation that you can bury completely in Abbotsford, I'd be fine with that. But nothing above that. You don't want to be counting.
I would say to him, show me. You take the rest of this year.
Fair enough.
Because Teddy Bluger is coming back, and he's essentially Teddy Bluger, right? He would play a lot of those same roles.
He said, poor man's Teddy Bluger.
Well, I mean, he had 11 goals once upon a time, and 26, I think, is his career high for points. The problem is that he's not the answer, and nobody's saying that he's any sort of solution to problems higher up the lineup. When Bluger comes back, then
he's a Band-Aid, Jeff. He's
right, but when Bluger comes back, you've got Bluger, you'd have Kampf, you'd have Sass, and you'd have Ratu. There's still that massive gap.
Yeah, Blake was talking about this earlier in the week. Do they need this sort of profile of center just to patch the dam? right now.
Possibly.
Until Bluger comes back, with the hopes that one day Hito will come back, and of course with everything that's ailing them.
I mean, at that point,
the PK,
it would allow you to move Reichel, I suppose. Like maybe Ratu goes up and plays your second line spot for a little while. Sasson could slide to the wing as well. He's done that before, and in fact, that might be his long-term play in the NHL. So there are ways to make it happen. I think it's worth kicking tires in the here and now. Again, you can't be killing penalties at 52% like they have for the last 7 games. So if you can find me more than a warm body that can come in and address that one area, it might help turn a few of these losses into single points or even victories along the way.
Do you remember when things started going really poorly for the Vancouver Canucks, Jeff, after the back-to-back President's Trophies, after they got swept by San Jose that one year? And
Yep.
There was the outlier season. They made the playoffs, Willie's first year with the Flames, but then it got really dark thereafter. And Canucks fans could comfort themselves by saying, well, at least we're not owned by Eugene Melnyk of the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
I suppose Canucks fans can comfort themselves by saying, at least we're not owned by Terry Pegula of the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres, once again, find themselves in the basement of the Eastern Conference, the forever rebuild, the warning shot, right? This is why you don't rebuild. They've lost 4 in a row, 14. They're actually even 3 points back of the next worst team in the Eastern Conference, poor Buffalo. JJ Paterka, fine young Sabres forward who got traded this summer. And people thought, why would they want to trade him? And it sounded like, well, just JJ Paterka was done with the Buffalo experience. He went to the Utah Mammoth. He had his return game against the Sabres. Did you see this quote?
I did, yeah.
He was asked in the morning about his life in Utah and how Utah treats their players under this new, young owner, Ryan Smith. Quote, ownership, management, they provide us with everything here. Best example is the practice facility. And then he went to talk about how they have everything they need to exceed. The owner is so invested, he's at every game. Well, he name-checked practice facility, which, ding, 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 red flag.
Red meat here, yeah.
Canucks continue to be without that's something Rutherford has promised. I don't think the Aquilinis are going to build a practice facility unless they have somebody coming in as an investor who will finance it effectively. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
And, again, it's one player citing one example. So no one here is saying take that morsel and, broaden it out to the nth degree. But it is interesting that that's the first thing that he name checks when talking about ownership.
Sealoves did too, right? When he got traded?
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. So, look, it's not the be-all, end-all, but it is something that players care about, and it continues to lack here with the Canucks.
Also, just quickly on the Buffalo thing, and you're right, the Sabres remain this idea of the shining beacon for the people that don't want any part of the rebuild, and yet it's not like the Sabres have done the rebuild properly. They've just been really bad for more than a decade now and lucked into first overall picks and still haven't been able to make it work with first overall picks and a second. I guess they've had two firsts and 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've acted like a team that has truly tried to fast track the rebuild, take on bad contracts, get other teams to give them things, take advantage of cap space, all the types of things that like the truly savvy like the Blackhawks have done a lot of that. They've been the middleman.
San Jose with Jake Wallman. They got a pick to take Jake Wallman and
like,
then traded him.
The Sabres
have
just wallowed in misery and had way too many coaches and a bunch of general managers, and nobody has actually done it right. So I don't think you can point to the Sabres as an example of, a rebuild that's failed. No, they've just been bad. They've been bad at everything they've done for far too long now. And you'd think at some point they would stumble upward but haven't managed to do that
It
either.
hasn't happened yet. The year they got first overall with Power, that was a tricky first overall to have, I think.
Oh, and Power.
Yeah.
But Dahlin has proven to be a,
Oh, yeah. No, he's worthy.
and a
Now he's taking a
Reinhardt
leave
and
of
Eichel.
absence
So
from the
two
club.
first 2 seconds. They should be way further ahead than they are.
Then they are. No question. No question. I mean, Alexander Nylander, Casey Middlestad.
They've missed.
These are misses
Yep.
in the top 10, to say the least. Okay, let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games, to pregame or postgame because you are mere steps from the arena or the stadium. And, of course, a fantastic spot if you're hosting an event. Maybe it's a family reunion, maybe it's a sports team party, maybe it's an office thing, whatever you want. Greta can handle it, and you're going to have a blast with the arcade that encircles the bar. Game for everyone. The food's fantastic as well. Poutine is decadent. Greta, for more info to book your event, go to gretabar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. We'll talk to Jeff Marek here as we do most Fridays. We missed Jeff last Friday. It's the Jeff segment.
You're outnumbered.
Yes, on the Vancouver Canucks and other NHL topics. Then we're going to talk to Glen Suitor of TSN from the 112th Grey Cup in Winnipeg. Note there, we did that interview yesterday, so you will see Blake there. Blake participates in that. And, of course, we did that interview before Nathan Rourke took home all the hardware last night, but we will talk about that. The Lions cleaning up at the CFL Player Awards, a little bit on the commissioner, Stuart Johnston, and his first State of the League address from the Grey Cup. We'll get into soccer, where there was a Canadian match yesterday that had some juice going in, then lost all juice in a matter of minutes. We'll explain.
Keep those cleats down.
Seattle Mariners and Cal Raleigh absolutely robbed, if you ask me, at the AL MVP voting. And then Abbotsford's Adam Hadwin. He has a desperately important weekend down in the Caribbean today. We'll let you know the stakes for Hadwin, one of our BC boys on tour. All of that is coming up on the program. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I was on Canada Win last night, and they may have if they had kept a full complement of players on the pitch. Alas, Ali Ahmed of the Whitecaps, we barely knew you. I'm not even sure he broke a sweat in the cold conditions in Toronto last night before he is sent off with a red card. So you start us off here, Jeff. What do you like? What are you looking at?
I like the fact they've got a super boosted Bet365 on the Canucks game in Carolina. Pretty simple. Seth Jarvis, who leads Carolina in shots on goal this season, you need him to hit 2 or more, and Connor Garland, who leads, he doesn't anymore. Petey and
Quinn Hughes are there.
But still, one of the better Canucks. So the super boost is if Jarvis gets 2+ shots and Connor Garland gets 2+ shots at plus 175.
Yeah, I like that. JPat going deep here into the menus. I was looking at the Canucks Hurricanes game, but you went on something there. So let me go on to one of the other games we'll be fixated on this weekend. Looking at that NFL game down in LA. Seahawks, Rams, we talked about it yesterday with Greg Bell. It's Seahawks +3 right now, and the line is kind of moving away from them. So maybe you hang on, maybe you get 3.5 over the course of the weekend, but you're getting that field goal. We know the Seahawks and how they play so many close games, or at least they did until recently when they started blowing everybody out. They've won all these games on the road. They've been incredible on the road. In fact, they're undefeated on the road this year. One of 2 teams undefeated on the road. So give me Seattle +3 down in LA against the Rams, the big showdown atop the NFC West. This segment, a presentation of Bet365. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Jeff Marek, next. Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center. This segment brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers and the 2025 Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid. This spirited and electrified ride built for automotive enthusiasts, a fifth-generation hybrid powertrain from the originators at Toyota. Superior battery means you can go weeks without having to stop, fill up for gas. No charging anxiety here either. You charge as you drive. You don't need a charger at home, just a regular plug-in overnight. 2-liter engine, it gets hearts pumping. It's the best of both worlds. Spacious, loaded with safety features, a clean, navigable, intuitive dash. Plus, this is a handsome car, as Blake always says. Spectacular lines. It's got the profile of a sports car. You preheat the cabin with the app, no idling, and those fold-down back seats, Jeff, you get all your golf and your hockey gear in there, even if you're a goalie. And you can lease the 2025 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $99 weekly at 3.49% APR for 64 months with $3,600 down, and that includes a $3,000 discount. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. As we welcome in the host of The Sheet, every day,
Hello.
10 a.m. Pacific here on the Nation Network. Mike, Blake, and I often say Friday is our Jeff show, often with Marek and Paterson, so this is the Jeff segment. Hello.
Ooh. One of these kids is not like the other, if I can co-opt an old phrase from our favorite kids show, Sesame Street. How are you, gentlemen, today? Big weekend coming up for the Canucks.
Every weekend seems like it's the end of the world for the Vancouver Canucks these days, but hey, every weekend's an opportunity, I suppose. That's how they have to look at it.
Hang on, let me couch something in a very specific way here for Vancouver Canucks fans. I know we're going to get into Demko and Hughes, etc. Maybe have a whack at the David Kampf pinata as well. But here's what I look at with the NHL right now. Let me know whether you guys are going to pick up what I put down here. It seems to me that this is, and I don't we want to put a time frame on it. Let's just say of recent note, that this is maybe the most average I've seen the NHL.
Yep.
Some may just say, oh, parity. I kind of look at it and say, like, no one outside of perhaps Colorado, although they, for 2 full periods, had their hands full of the Buffalo Sabres last night, there's no one that's really distinguished themselves as being great yet. Like, this is a very average start to this NHL season. That's why, if you're a team that thinks you can contend, go for it. Or if you're a fan base that thinks like, oh, no, the sky is falling, Chicken Little, take solace in the fact that this is not a runaway freight train this year of an NHL season. So far, it's been a quite average NHL season.
And it's funny you say that, Jeff, because not just team-related, but, it goes hands in hand here. Like, I'll look at the stats and I'll see a guy, he's only got 3 goals. Like, he's only got 3 goals now. That applies to Elias Pettersson out here among others.
You be talking about, JPat?
No, across the league. Now, obviously, there's Celebrini and Bedard and those storylines.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people picking up their points, McKinnon and Natchez, but there are a lot of guys. I look at it, we're a full month into the season now, and I'm just like, so yes, I agree with you. Whether it's the team level or individuals, there's just a lot of meh.
It's
out
funny
there.
you said, well, we've been talking about that on the show, and you're right, Jeff. Like, this is what's still fueling a little bit of hope for the Vancouver Canucks given their start. But it's funny because before the season, I'm combing through depth charts, looking at teams and other stats, but mostly depth charts as we got to make our predictions. And I was like, oh, I like this team. And then I'd go and I'd look at their depth chart and I'd go, oh, honestly, I liked a fully healthy Florida Panthers team at the beginning of the year. And the rest of them, I sort of felt like, okay,
yeah,
we can throw you all
now, and now even the Florida Panthers, and even with Matthew Tkachuk coming back one day and Alexander Barkov coming back one day, there is a sort of vibe around the league. I certainly feel this way. Maybe I shouldn't say everyone feels this way. Curious what you guys think. I mean, I've kind of come back from Niagara Falls on the Florida Panthers, right? Like the honeymoon here is kind of over. That's a lot of hockey for a team to play. Not just winning the Stanley Cup, but getting the Stanley Cup final as well. I don't know. Like, I've not, like, no one,
fair enough.
Maybe, and even, but even Colorado, like here's a team that has, Burns and Manson as their second pair. Like, every team has holes, some significant, but the main point that I'm getting at here is, we all know what's happening with the Calgary Flames, but outside of that, like, who's really completely taken themselves, maybe Nashville, who's really taken themselves out here in the Western Conference? Like, I was talking to Drew Amanda yesterday on the sheet with Greg Wyshynski, and we were saying, like, look, things have to break the right way. Everyone's got to stay healthy. Askarof's got to have a great season. But I can't sit here and tell you that the San Jose Sharks 100% can't make the playoffs, because why not? It doesn't mean that this is the beginning of them making the playoffs for 10 years in a row, but we've seen teams go on like PDO benders and make it in the playoffs and come down to earth the next season. It's happened before. No one's only a couple of teams have really taken themselves out of it that you look at and you say, like, we know what's going to happen to them come trade deadline time, if not before. That's why if I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan, and this is like, it's Carolina, Tampa, Florida this weekend. I know it looks daunting, and Thatcher Demko and Quinn Hughes, etc. But this is a very average start to this season. You just got to be blunt about it.
Blake and I had the conversation last week and said, okay, if we're going to have a whole bunch of mediocrity in the league this year with no great teams or very few great teams, at least give us a banger playoff chase down the last couple of weeks, right? Like, that's what you get to look forward to if, in fact, you do have these tightly bunched teams all around the playoff bar.
Can I ask you guys a philosophical question, sort of straying away from the Canucks here for 1 second? But
see, JPat, this is how it works with Marek. He asks the questions, we answer.
Love it.
It's a different segment than we do with anybody else.
I'm only really comfortable asking the questions.
That's right.
I really expose myself as a fraud.
He's a better pitcher than catcher.
But what I really want to do is direct. Okay, so. And there have been some great teams, not cut out of the cloth of, the Islanders and the Habs, and you could argue the Edmonton Oilers, certainly, with the 4 cups in 5 years. But do you think, this is just a personal question, because for me the answer is not a hard yes, but a soft yes, and that is, do you think when mediocrity is the call of the day, or parity is the call of the day, and there are no dynasties anymore, or we've maybe at best recalibrated what a dynasty team is, does it devalue the Stanley Cup to you? When all you have to be is the best out of a bunch of mediocre teams. Like, you look at the Cup, like, one of the great things about going to Yonge and Front Street, the Hall of Fame, is like, look at those Islanders. Like, look at those two Flyers. Like, look at that's a team. And then you get into the salary cap era, and listen, Chicago had their 3, and the Kings had a pair in two cups in 3 years, and we know what the Pittsburgh Penguins have done, and most recently, of course, the Florida Panthers and Tampa previous to that. But are there any teams that you look at and you say, like, wow, like, this is like, count the Hall of Famers on this team. Wow, this is a real. Am I making too much of this? Or
I hear where you're coming from, Jeff. But I will say, like, the beauty of the Cup in my mind is always going to be, the race to 16 wins, right? 4 wins per round. Like, the St. Louis Blues were not a great team, but they became a great story.
Yep.
Right? And so I hear what you're saying. Like, the days of the true dynasty, I think, are behind us, but it's impossible to say that the last team standing isn't a worthy champ any year just because of the grind it takes to win the Cup, in my mind, and what the Florida Panthers have done the last 3 years, getting to a final and then getting it right the last 2, and the Oilers can sort of author that same kind of story, not on the levels of the Islanders and the Habs teams that you mentioned, but I still think every spring that there are some pretty incredible stories authored by whoever ends up hoisting the cup.
I would say it does not devalue the Stanley Cup for me, Jeff, but it does make the whole season, including playoffs, less memorable. Jeff cited the 2019 St. Louis Blues. Other than the photo, only because I've seen it so much because Rutherford is here, I have very little recollection of the 06 Hurricanes winning the Stanley Cup. I remember Cam Ward was terrific. I want to say they beat Montreal. I think I was in Montreal when they won a series against the Habs in that run. The 2012 Kings were desperately boring, and so I've sort of outside of the first round where they made short work of the Canucks.
But at least they backed it up with another one. At least the
Kings did, and they won all those games in a row. So I'll give them that. But like the Cup final against New Jersey that year, I'm like, I can tell you, I can remember a single thing about it. So
the thing about the Hurricanes in 06, it's funny. I was just talking about this the other day. We're going to get back to Vancouver talk here, fans. Don't worry. I just want to make one final point and turn the recreation back. The thing about the 06 Carolina Hurricanes, I mean, that was in a lot of ways the perfect Stanley Cup champion for that season because it came out of nowhere. And as you guys recall, that was a year where everybody had to relearn how to play hockey. It was coming out of the lockout. There was the crackdown on obstruction. The Philadelphia Flyers didn't believe that they were going to stick with it, and the referees were going to bend and eventually go back to the old ways. So they miscalculated and had a bunch of oak trees on the back end that were mobile and ended up paying for it. The Carolina Hurricanes, again, out of nowhere, won the Stanley Cup, and then everybody thought it was going to be about foot speed. And then Brian Brooks' Anaheim Ducks did it with nuclear deterrence on the bench. But that whole season, I kind of crumple up and throw away. Now, no offense to the player that we're going to mention here, but do you remember who won the Rocket Richard in 2006? Here's my Easter egg.
Yeah.
Jonathan Chichu.
Oh, right.
Like, that was a year where just, like, crazy stuff happened in the NHL. Everybody was relearning how to play again. So in a lot of ways, Carolina was the perfect Stanley Cup champion. Small market, didn't expect it. All the things that we thought we knew about the game and the teams and all that were out the window. Chichu snaps in.
Frank Caberlet was their leading defenseman on that team, and Corey Stillman and Eric Cole were amongst their top 5 scorers.
Stillman should have won the Conn Smythe, by the way. That was the performance of all.
And honestly, some of the dead cup or dead puck cups as well. Jeff, like, I don't dispute New Jersey's brilliance in the least. You have those 2 defensemen and that goaltender, and that is sensational, but I can't say that was the most enjoyable hockey to watch. Let's move on to the. You've had your 10 minutes.
Okay, I got my. There was. You put some candy on my microphone for me. Thanks, guys.
Well, your segue back into the Canucks is that Jim Rutherford went out and acquired both Mark Recchi and Doug Weight, if I'm not mistaken.
There
right?
you go, Jeff.
Yep.
Who's the Mark Recchi? Who's the Doug Weight coming to the rescue here in Vancouver this season?
But that really helped build the reputation. That really started the reputation of Jim Rutherford as getting the jump on everybody and not waiting until trade deadline. Right. Because everybody else historically had always waited till deadline, and Rutherford's like, screw that, I'm making my moves now, and I'm getting my guys in here, and they're getting acclimatized, and they're learning how we play, and they just kept on winning. We said, oh, look, it's cute. Carolina's winning hockey games. Oh, cute. Next thing you know, they're winning the Stanley Cup.
The halcyon days of early buying, Jeff. Remember those?
Yeah, I know.
We're having a different sort of trade discussion in this market these days.
You mean Lucas Reichel isn't it?
Yeah, Lucas Reichel, believe it or not, isn't it. Oh. Anyways, you mentioned it. Carolina, the 2 Florida teams back-to-back. No Demko and maybe no Hughes. The Canucks survived this weekend?
Jeez. My head says no. My heart says yes. We love magic in sports. We love things to be unpredictable. And just when you think that, there's no way they're going to win these games, Vancouver goes and, rattles off 3 big wins here and picks up 5 of 6 possible points or dare we say 6 points. Listen, this is going to be tough. And I don't need to tell you guys that. And the one team that is incredibly frustrating to play against are the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, they live in your hip pocket. As much as they are an analytically led team, they still kind of play an old school table hockey kind of game. Rod Brindamore loves to, dump it in and retrieve, dump it in and retrieve, dump it. Like there's no secret about how the Carolina Hurricanes play. It's hard work. And, the way that Eric Tulsky and his predecessor, Don Waddell, brought players into this organization was based on how Rod Brindamore wants his team to play. And you have to be athletic, you have to be able to think on your feet quickly, you have to be able to react, and you have to be mobile. If you're a defenseman, for example, like Keandre Miller, there is room for you with the Carolina Hurricanes. If you're a player that plies his trade and makes his living by, cross checks all the way to hell, there's not going to be a place for you on the Carolina Hurricanes. The one thing about Carolina, and I've always considered Carolina an acquired taste, if you're a hockey fan, because I know it's not the most exciting brand of hockey. But the one thing that I'm fascinated by with Carolina, and that's why I always encourage fans when they're watching the Hurricanes to buy a ticket up high, so you can see everything and watch what happens when things break down. And something really fascinating happens if you're watching it up high. Because we look at the game now, we see like, wow, there's no room to move out there. It's because everyone's playing zone. When you're playing a man-to-man like Carolina does, when there's a turnover or a breakdown and the puck changes possession, it's amazing because everyone's playing in each other's hip pocket. How much actual ice is out there? And you're like, and usually when that happens, it leads to a high danger scoring chance. And that's the risk that Carolina always takes. That's, I call it the Carolina gamble. If it works, it's really successful and horrible to play against. But if you make a mistake, and that's why they need smart hockey players there. If you make a mistake, it is almost an automatic high danger scoring chance because there is so much ice available to you when you play man-to-man. Fascinating team to watch.
Elias Pettersson would sure fit that system. Huh?
I was so wondering if you were going to go there because I can see that 100% too, Maddie. And listen, I don't think it's exactly a secret. A couple of years ago, that was one of the teams that was interested in Elias Pettersson. So yes, as I'm describing this, all the Vancouver Canucks fans are like bobbleheading this and go like, now take the next step, Marek. Now take the next step.
Exactly. Connect the dots, Jeff.
Canucks were held to 14 shots in Carolina last year. Remember, that was the night they got snowed in Raleigh and had to fly to Toronto. And then they shut out the Maple Leafs. I want to sell a little bit of hope here for the weekend, and you're a part of this here, Jeff, because they're going to be tough in Carolina. And we'll see what happens there. They get Tampa on Sunday, and earlier in the week, it was just one of those innocuous little transaction tweets that comes out, and I saw you jump on the fact that Tampa had recalled a couple of big boys earlier in the week. They've got some injury issues. But the Canucks get Tampa on Sunday after Tampa is in Florida on Saturday afthroon. And we think back to the preseason and bloodbaths and the rivalry is alive.
I don't remember that.
They're probably not going to
remember that at all.
Probably not going to see Vasilevsky because I would imagine he'll play against the Panthers. So there's a break there. But also, will Tampa survive its visit to Sunrise on Saturday to play on Sunday?
Who's going to be left? Who's going to be? We all remember that preseason game where there was a couple of players. I thought the mascot was going to get a shift or something. Like one of the season ticket holders was going to get out there on the power play. First of all, the sobering point of the call-ups too, where I was like, to your point, Jeff, like the Tampa Bay Lightning are going through an injury crisis. I know no Vancouver Canucks fan wants to hear that because it's like, oh really? A team's going through and they got a wagon full of injured players. Hey, really? I wonder what that feels like. But Tampa is going through it right now, so that is part of it. But make no mistake about it, Scott Sabourin was getting called up for the Florida game. And we all know it. Like there's no the suspension has been served. They were very strategic about how they did it. The suspension has been served, and there was no way that Scott Sabourin wasn't getting called up for that game on Friday. So as much as it was like a lot of Tampa fans like, no, dummy, pay attention. They got a lot of injuries. Boy, are you dumb, knucklehead, blah, 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 blah. You got scabs on your knuckles. Did you walk over here, Marek? Ha, 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 ha. Like, we all know why they called up Scott Sabourin. And he scored against the Rangers.
Yeah. Just a word to Paul Maurice and John Cooper. The phrase "pay the price," legally dicey. We learned that here 20 years ago. Be careful what you say to them.
The NHL always calls the teams beforehand to remind them that the eyeballs are on them. But I always hearken back to, I think it was it Conn Smythe who used to say, we're going to have to do something about all this fighting in the NHL. We're going to have to make bigger buildings.
Yeah. I want to ask you this because for the last week here, we missed you last week. He was with his 2012 at a flyweight tournament. Oh, driveway tournament.
U14.
There's been a lot of rebuild talk here. And to be fair, there's been rebuild talk in this market for 12 years, but it whipped up again over the last week with some Canucks losses and Bedard coming in here looking great and all that. Is there another team around the league that refuses to rebuild and has this conversation around the club in market by the fans? Is it Boston, or just Boston is able to retool successfully so the conversation never gets to why won't this team rebuild? Like what is what is preventing them? Why don't they learn? Why don't they take this?
Right now, that conversation is revolving around Nashville. Right now, this is a couple of years of the Nashville Predators. I mean, Barry Trotz had the great line in the preseason. Everyone predicted us to win the Stanley Cup last year. We proved them wrong, and we're going to prove them wrong again this year because they've written us off. And it has not gone swimmingly, and everyone's having the conversations about Stamkos and, where could Stamkos end up? And make no mistake about it, Vancouver is part of that conversation, as is Montreal, as are, a number of teams. I don't know about full freight, but I think that they're at least in the conversation there. We've wondered about Jonathan Marchessault, so I've wondered about UC Saros with a team like the Edmonton Oilers, much like, I've wondered about it. I've wondered about a player like Philip Forsberg. Essentially, and I've been trying to make the point in the past couple of weeks here with Nashville that I think it's reasonable to expect a player. It's reasonable to ask a player. Let me frame it this way. It's reasonable to ask a player to go through one rebuild, but considering how short careers are, you can't ask them to do it twice. You can't. And that's why, one of the players that I'd be wondering about with Nashville as this thing continues to spiral. I wonder about Philip Forsberg through all of this one here. So I think that's a team that right now is having that conversation. But listen, just when we thought Boston was going to bottom out and this was going to be it and it was going to be the great sell-off, they rattle off 7 wins. And all of a sudden it's geeky mania all over the NHL.
The unstoppable
as
Morgan
we all
Geeky,
expected. Yeah. I know, as we all expected. So I think as long as Boston does show some signs of life, and just as an aside too, I'm really happy for Marco Sturm through all of this too. That could have been a really tough situation, and it still might end up being. We're still early here. Could have been a really tough situation to walk in with all the losses piling up, and I'm happy for that person and that coach, that things, at least right now, are working out for the Boston Bruins. But no, I think the main one right now, Matty, a long-winded answer, are the Nashville Predators. But make no mistake about it, Vancouver has always, as you guys well know, resisted the scorched earth, take it down to the nuts and bolts kind of rebuild.
Yeah, it hasn't been a 12-year storyline in Nashville.
Just quickly on the Predators. Hey, Jeff, what did the poor people of Sweden do to deserve a visit from the Nashville Predators this weekend?
It wasn't supposed to be like this. That's what I'm saying here. It wasn't.
Well, they do get Sid. Pittsburgh is there.
I know.
They get Sid and they get Forsberg. I get it. I understand it. One of the things. Actually, you guys will know this. It would have been Shane O'Brien in that global series or whatever it was called then in Prague when the Rangers were playing Tampa. I think O'Brien was scratched for the second of the 2 games set, and they left for Prague. And when they landed back in Tampa, there was a plane waiting to take O'Brien to Vancouver. The speculation, I think he might have been traded on the flight or maybe traded overseas. And this would have been, I want to say 2008, 2007. Shane O'Brien.
It was later than 07, but let me find it here. 08-09 season.
Yeah,
early in the 08-09. He played 1 game for Tampa that year, and then was moved to the Canucks.
and it was in Prague, and then he got traded. Many wonder if they was traded, before they got on the flight, before the game where he was scratched, or maybe it was, as soon as they landed, they consummated it. I'm not sure, but honestly, I think a lot of us will be wondering, and they'll be having that conversation. Make no mistake about it. In Sweden, when we get off the flight back home, are we all going to the same place?
Yeah.
That's what I would think. But you know what? For hang on. But as an aside, quickly, the best thing for Nashville right now is to get out of town. The best thing for the Preds is if you're a team that has a bunch of new players on the squad. I remember talking to someone in Philadelphia one year, a few years ago, and there's a bunch of new players on the team, and their schedule had them playing on the road 10 of 12 games. And I was talking to someone there. I'm like, "Oh man, your schedule is brutal." And he said to me, "No, this is what you want. if you have a bunch of new players on your hockey team, you want to get on the road right away to get these guys together. You don't want like you playing 12 of your first 15 at home because they never see each other, they never hang out with each other, they never go to dinner with each other. If you have a team that has a bunch of players that aren't used to each other, don't know each other, get them on the road as fast as you can. And right now, this team is going through hell in Nashville. Get them on the road and get them together. It's maybe the best thing for Nashville right now.
I remember the Flyers a couple of years ago were part of that global series. I can't remember which city it was, doesn't matter. They then were here in Vancouver like a week later. Like, it was just one of the craziest. We always talk about travel and the West Coast.
Yeah.
The Flyers started in Europe, and a week later we're here in Vancouver, like 12 time zones away. So.
Yeah. Enjoy that body
Well,
clock.
all of this dovetails beautifully into our Easter egg with Jeff Marek.
My new lifeline. With JPat, my new lifeline.
You have JPat here to assist you, unless
you.
he knows the answer, unless he saw it this week. He doesn't even know the question.
No.
I keep this under wraps.
I'm
Not
coming
even
in
Mike knows
blind.
the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
As you mentioned, global series in Sweden this week. Penguins and Predators from Stockholm. We have a illustrious history of Swedish players in this market. And I came across this week, and I got to say, I would not have gotten it, so I thought maybe Jeff Marek will get this.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Who has the highest scoring season by a Swedish player in the National Hockey League? JPat, do you know?
I'm formulating. I've got a couple of answers rattling around in my head.
There have been
Hang
14.
on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I try to jump on this quick before we get any teasers or clues?
Yep, please.
Is it Kent Nilsson?
Very good, Jeff Marek.
It is. He's one of my favorite players. And always has been.
And
Kent
it's
Nilsson.
not
And one of the most underrated players
particularly
of all time.
close.
Really?
Kent
Yeah, it was
Nilsson.
like 150 points or something.
No, 131.
136? 131.
131 in 1980-81 for the Calgary Flames. Believe it or not, I was a 4 or 5 year old. My family had just moved from Montreal to Calgary, and Kent Nilsson was he was our Gretzky in southern Alberta. 131.
Incredible.
It is 15 better than Peter Forsberg's best season of 116, which is second place amongst Swedish players.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give your audience some homework here. So you know the move, the postage stamp move, the move we call the Forsberg every time we see it. But like everybody now, to open up a browser and go to YouTube and type in Kent Nilsson, John Van Beesbroek, 1989 World Championships. And I remember asking Peter Forsberg about it. I'm like, did you get it from that? Because he pulls what we now call the Forsberg on John Van Beesbroek. And it's a gorgeous goal. And it's the Forsberg move. And it's before, sorry, Corey, it's before the Hirsch postage stamp. And that became super popular, and we still see it in the NHL right now. That's Kent Nilsson's move. And we saw it for the first time at the 89 World Championships against John Van Beesbroek. And everybody went, what was that? And it's full speed. Right, it's not on a penalty shot. It's not on a shootout. It's full speed. It's 5-on-5 play, and it's beautiful. And Forsberg's like, yeah, I got it from that moment, watching Sweden against USA. There's your homework, everybody. Go watch the originator of the Forsberg, Kent Nilsson.
Yeah, and the other crazy thing, Nilsson and Forsberg are the only Swedes with multiple 100-point seasons in the NHL. Believe it or not.
Right, eh?
Hank,
The way you had framed the question, part of me
Danny,
was
Sundin,
thinking,
Paterson, Carlson, Backstrom, Mats Naslund and Marcus Naslund, Hakanlub.
that's where I the way you had framed the question, part of me, like, I knew he had a big season. I had to look at 106 points for Hakanlub. So not in the running here, but originally.
Sixth amongst Swedes.
It is sixth, then. Okay.
Yeah. Nielsen, Forsberg 116, Sundin 114, Hank 112, Mats Naslund 110 with the Canadians in their cup year of 85-86. I was
here's some
astonished
Marquee trivia.
looking at this list.
So,
like I would have gotten this list so wrong at the top and through the top 10 to 15, 14 seasons all time. from Swedes
There's
of 100 points.
Swedish coach. Here you go. Arcane Easter egg for you guys. So Rikard Gronberg is a legendary Swedish coach who's now returned, and probably by now he should have had a job in the NHL. There were reports that he actually interviewed with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the summer. I was never able to confirm that. I had been told that by a couple of different people. Anyhow, I ended up going to Dan Muse. He had interviewed previously with a couple of different teams as an assistant. But speaking of Mats Naslund, here's one for your hip pocket. So he had a very unique looking visor. If you go to your Google Images, you can have a look at Mats Naslund's visor. His father, who was a designer of a lot of various pieces of hockey equipment, used to make Mats Naslund's visors. They were all personally made by Rikard Gronberg's dad. And as a kid, Rikard Gronberg's job was to put visors on Mats Naslund's helmets. That was his job. That's what I got for you.
Yeah,
good.
That's what I got for you today, boys.
It's funny because as a kid going to games at the Forum, Mats Naslund was like the be-all, end-all. Like, they loved it when
26.
Lafleur touched the puck. There was always the chance of Guy, but he was not in his heyday then, and Naslund was the driver.
Because it was so much fun to say his name, Mats Naslund.
Wow, and when he scored on, the PA, the famous PA there. You have a marvelous week.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, the 112th Grey Cup game from Princess Auto Stadium in Winnipeg on Sunday. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, champions of the West, the Montreal Alouettes, champions of the East. And calling it on TSN for a 17th time in his illustrious career, it's TSN's lead football analyst. It's been a long time, Glenn Suitor of the North Shore. How you doing, buddy?
Well, I've all of a sudden feel old. But,
I didn't mean to date you.
Yeah, but you know what? It is just, first of all, to all of my teammates on the crew who are doing such a great job of presenting the game at TSN, but also, just it's a piece of Canadian history to me. And, just to fight off the nerves and understand the responsibility, which is why I made a rule 17 years ago. I'm going to lock in and be prepared so that if I do make a mistake in the game, which will likely happen, it's not because I didn't get enough sleep or I was out too late or anything like that. I just want to make sure that, I get everything I got, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and as someone who has tried to lure suits out to the trappings of Grey Cup week in the past, my friend, yes, you're steadfast in your process and procedure. We're going to get into this game in a second, but I do want your 2 cents on the Lions season. We had Ryan Rigmaiden on the show on Monday. You, of course, called the West Final. What did you make of this Lions season, and what's your forecast for BC in the future, Glenn?
I believe that the Lions have the best player in the league, and in Nathan Rourke, the guy who can be the face of the league. You guys notice my hat, and I'm proudly wearing it. I bought this hat in Juno Beach and proudly wearing it for all of Grey Cup week. Just the basic, it's our game, it's a Canadian game, and to have a Canadian quarterback throw for 5,000 yards in a season is a historic season. I love how much that we back and praise our Canadian hockey players and, our Canadian soccer players, and when we get in the Olympics and things like that. And I'd like to see us do it more with our Canadian Football League players, because we, with Nathan, I believe is going to be a reigning MOP for years to come, and should take, they'll break through if they can build around Nathan.
You'd think. You'd absolutely think.
I was hoping to see him this week. It's been since Russ Jackson in 1969 since a Canadian quarterback has lifted the Grey Cup.
Unique Grey Cup final, which is nice too. I'm sure you like this as well, that when you do this year after year, it was probably time for somebody other than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to be involved in this game. And hey, there are drivers in both of these markets that don't remember the last time that these two teams were even individually in the Grey Cup final 13 years ago, but a 3-year-old probably is not remembering this now. So this is a nice, unique final here where I think both fan bases probably get a charge of being involved here.
But you're right. I mean, there's something to be said about the storyline over the last 5 years of sort of the New York Yankee type of story where Winnipeg is this big dog on the porch and which team is going to be able to knock them off. And it's good for the country that it spread around a little bit. It's good for the fan bases to see the results of a lot of hard work. And I've always said about this in any sport and pro sports, guys, is that when you have a great team and you're going on a championship run, don't take it for granted. If you're on that roll, enjoy it.
Well, I was going to ask you because, just as the talk picked up this season that Winnipeg is now the bell cow CFL market with all those sellouts at Princess Auto and, of course, 5 straight West Division championships, here come the Riders and here come the Priders to take over Grey Cup week, one province owner over. And, of course, our younger audience members may not remember Blake, but Glenn Suitor was part of the 1989 Saskatchewan Rough Rider Grey Cup champions. Who could forget the hold for Dave Ridgway and the game-winning field goal? But Glenn, explain that, like, when you're a rider and you win a Grey Cup, what's that like when you go back
Where's
to
Glen
the
Suitor
province
Street?
of
Surely it's there.
I mean, no, but... tell us about the admiration and the affection that, like, even guys, from that team, however long ago, get when they go back to that province.
Yeah, Matt. In fact, send you the picture of Suitor Street because there is one in Regina. In fact, there's a subdivision in Regina. Yeah. So that is exactly what happens. And, we had half the stadium full on a freezing night when we came back from that and did our, our cup speeches and things like that. It's a fan base that invests, they just, and I hate the narrative when people say, well, they don't have anything else to cheer for. They do now. We can have our favorite NFL teams. We have our favorite NHL teams. You don't have to necessarily have one in your city to be a fan of other things and other, entertainment entities. But they are invested from a young age, as you know. And, Trevor Harris has been very, I'll say, confident outside of his normal characteristics of sort of humble, veteran, great player. And this week and last week, you guys heard all the Nathan Rourke back and forth. It's our time. It's your time. It's our time. And, I think the team is embracing it. The coach is nervous about it in Corey Mace. The team is embracing it, and the fans love it because they believe it is their time.
What do you make of the lead up that they had where they played these meaningless games at the end of the season, get the bye week as well? I mean, they rise to the occasion ultimately against the Lions. Are they sharp enough, though? Have they got the razor sharp edge back, do you think, after basically a month of kicking the ball around?
Yeah. I always believe in rest at this time of year over reps. I really do. Like I know this argument comes up for the top teams every year, and the discussion is it better to rest or is it better to keep playing? You can make it that when you win the semifinal and you go into the final, you've got a little momentum behind you. But I think every game is a different journey. So, it can change in a hurry. I mean, an early score against you takes that momentum away in a heartbeat. So, I think I'd always vote for rest this time of year. They're always dinged up. All the players. I don't think at 39 years old that Trevor Harris needs to take extra practice reps. He will be mentally prepared for the Grey Cup. And if he doesn't play well, it'll be because the Montreal defense. It won't be because he didn't get reps in 1 week of practice.
Is Trevor Harris, and I'm going to say this respectfully, there's been a lot of like journeyman quarterbacks that have had special runs, the Kerry Josephs and Kevin Glenn's of the world and such. Is Trevor Harris that? Is he different than that? What do you see for him in terms of his legacy?
Well, I think he's a great player that you can win with. I think he took Ottawa to the 2018 Cup, didn't win the Cup, but they got there. I think he is a quarterback you can win with and can win a championship, win it all with, and hasn't done that. So your question's a good one, Blake, because this game probably helps define him one way or another. It really does. If Trevor Harris, if Davis Alexander doesn't win this game, he is a bright star coming up. He's a young gun. People love him. Love the way he approaches, and he will continue on. But Trevor Harris, if he doesn't win this, it defines him in a different way, as you just mentioned. And I think if he wins, that sort of all goes away.
Yep. And if he loses, he's a 40-year-old quarterback at the start of next season with a concussion history. And, you're quite right. It's huge in terms of a legacy swing. My friend, I have a lot of people in my circle who are huge football people and huge Canadian football people. I'm not sure I know anyone who is a bigger Canadian football person than Glen Suitor. And so we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you, Glenn, what your thoughts are on the rule changes that are coming over the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, right off the top, I've said over and over that I don't think they were absolutely necessary for sure. And as Nathan Rourke, I thought very, in a very articulate way, voiced concerns. I also have concerns. But I think a lot of those concerns stem from that we believe this is the thin edge of the wedge, and that it is the indication of more to come. I'm going to refuse at this point, guys, to worry about that when it might never happen. And, everything I've talked to with the commissioner, private conversations, and listened to him in press conferences, he has never brought up what I think are the foundational rules in our game. 3 downs, 12 players on the field, Canadian content, and the timing of the final 3 minutes of the half and the final 3 minutes of the game. Those, to me, are the 4 cornerstone rules in our game. So moving the goalposts, okay, I get the player safety angle. And when an offense is coming out from their own end inside their own 5-yard line, it will open up their offense a little bit because the goalpost happens to be right in the middle of their backfield if you're on the 3 or 4 coming out. Now, that doesn't happen a ton, and because now you want to shorten the field offensively so that you're not taking too many point possibilities off the board. So I think they were all coordinated. They still haven't sorted out the final 3 minutes in timing, because timing will be a rule change. And when they find out about the final 3 minutes, and I hope that the answer is, we're going to leave. We're going to change the timing all the way up to the final 3 minutes, and then we're going to leave it the way it is in the final 3 minutes. And I hope that's the way they go.
Glenn, that's my understanding, and I just learned this week because I thought they were going running clock like the NFL does throughout. But I was reading J.C. Abbott this week at 3 Down Nation, who says, no, the final 3 minutes are going to be the CFL timing rules that we know and love, because, of course, it's those timing rules that produces the fantastic finishes like the West semifinal, Calgary and BC trading those field goals in the last 70 seconds of the game. My understanding is that is going to stay as it is going forward. And I think that's a smart carve out in terms of, what they're looking to do, which is make the game go quicker, but also preserving those moments of drama and intensity.
And not having 2 rosters on the field while time is still ticking down we see in the NFL.
The worst part about the NFL is too many games end on a knee, too many games end with the clock just expiring because the offense runs out of time.
Coaches on the field.
And it sounds like we're going to continue having that in the CFL, which I think is smart.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, that we'll get a more clarification officially from that, but I'm hearing the same things, and that's exactly that's what I'd hope for. So again, did we need change? I think sometimes changing rules like this to this level is sending the message to the fan that the game needs to be fixed. And as you guys have seen through the playoffs, as you've seen through the regular season, where more than 50% of our games are decided in the final 3 minutes. I mean, there's not many sports in the world that can make that claim. And you want to make a statement, you're making changes, you're opening it up, and let's do the old trust but verify. So not get overly frustrated or overly concerned with something that might not happen, like going to 4 downs. Probably won't happen.
Yeah.
Let's not get overly concerned with something that won't happen, and let's trust and verify and look at the numbers. If there are 60 more touchdowns that we call at TSN, I love that.
Yeah. Oh, well, scoring was up this year. Yards were up. We saw that. The line set a record yards per play. So, no, I'm with you with regards to I thought the game was moving in a good place, at least on the field. And I'm also with you in terms of some of the hallmarks of the game and of the league that we want to preserve going forward.
But most importantly, Suits, I love the fact that between Rourke and Alexander, do we have 2 cornerstone young quarterbacks here that can be sort of the faces of this league going forward, and hopefully there'll be more that raise their hand in the next couple of years. But we have superstar quarterback potential now in both conferences for the first time, and this, this kind of dropped into our lap here. That part is great too.
Yeah.
And both guys love the league.
Yes.
And both guys are passionate about it, which is why I loved what Nathan said. I really did. And I know there was a lot of controversy swirling around it and all of that. But, and he's been asked about another shot at the NFL and has said this week that he doesn't want to chase money, that this is his opportunity and he loves this game and he loves this league. I covered a lot of great quarterbacks in this league. Played against Doug Flutie. I covered Ricky Ray, Dunnigan, a lot of great quarterbacks, and they're all competitive. They're all want to win, ultra team guys, just their competitive nature. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback that cares as much as Nathan Rourke. So the competitive aspect, but what he brings that's just subtly different is that he really cares about his own owners, teammates, and he wants to be great. And I think making him the face of the league is just going to bode real well for it in the future.
Yeah, and of course MOP as well. Looking forward to this weekend, Glenn. Looking forward to the football game and hearing you on the call again, a November tradition. Thank you for this, my friend. Have yourself a great week there, and we'll catch up down the road.
Anytime, guys. I appreciate it. Call me more often. Come on.
Our Vancouver guy. Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center in the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio, built by Arbor Lee. Big game downtown. Make it more than a night. Make it a memory. Stay steps from the action here at the Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center with an exclusive Sekeres and Price rate. Call 604-331-1000. Mention our show. Some blackout date supply subject to availability. Well, the BC Lions clean up at the CFL Awards night. Nathan Rourke pulls off the double, winning Most Outstanding Player and Most Outstanding Canadian Player. Mathieu Betts wins his second Most Outstanding Defensive Player, and Andrew Pearson, offensive lineman, bestowed the Tom Pate Award for Community Service. Rourke matches the feat pulled off by Winnipeg running back Brady Oliveira just last year, but don't think that this is typical. New West, John Cornish did it in 2013. Tony Gabriel did it in 1978, and Russ Jackson did it 3 times. So there you go. 6-7 times it's been done. In league history, he's the first Lion to win the MOP since Saleh Elamimian in 2014. He's the first Canadian quarterback to win Most Outstanding Player since Russ Jackson in 1969. Jeff, wow, 56 years? Oof. Betts, his second Most Outstanding Defensive Player. He won it 2 years ago, and he's the only Canadian to win this award twice. And really, that probably cements him for the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. One day, he joined Saleh Elamimian, Cam Wake, and James Quick Parker as Lions to win this award twice. If he were to get a third, he'd tie Quick Parker, who got one after he left BC, Adam Bighill, Joe Monford, Danny Kepley for second place all-time. Ex-Edmonton linebacker Willie Pless won it 5 times. That's the record. I mean, it's a who's who of Canadian defensive players.
Incredible company to keep already.
It really is. So good on Betts. Pearson has won the Lions Jamie Terrace Award for community service 5 straight years. He's just a great community person. He now adds the league honors. He was cited specifically for his work with the BC Heart and Stroke Foundation and with stroke awareness. So congratulations to Andrew, Nathan, and Mathieu. Sunday's Grey Cup game, Jeff, will be the last CFL game with the 20-second play clock and the no-touch rouge, as those rules are set to change for 2026. Tell me we're getting a missed field goal through the end zone to win, right? The nightmare scenario that they talked about. There was polling this week from Angus Reid about Canadians and football fans' attitudes towards the new rule changes. Believe it or not, those who say they closely follow the CFL did not particularly like this fleet of changes rolled out by new Commissioner Stuart Johnson. As for the game, Saskatchewan 1,000-yard receiver Keyshawn Johnson, he missed practice yesterday. He was participating earlier in the week. He missed the game against BC, the West Final. So we'll see where he's at. Montreal quarterback Davis Alexander says his hamstring feels good, has responded to treatment. And then speaking of Commissioner Johnson, he gave his State of the League address today, announced there will be a new CFL website, new team sites, a CFL app to come in 2026, as well as a season-long fantasy football game like you experience with NFL fantasy football. He also reiterated 3 downs, unlimited motion, 65 yards wide for the field, not going anywhere. And he confirmed that the schedule for 2026 will be out on December 9th. That has always been a moving target and frustration for CFL fans.
Well, the website stuff is just a no-brainer, right? Like, and the fact that the CFL hasn't had an app, like, come on. It's 2025, almost 26. So, like, those just seem like baselines. And I'm glad to hear that, because there is plenty of room for improvement. If you go to the Lions website or the CFL website, there is plenty of room for improvement. And
I actually like the team sites better than the league site. I have some frustrations with the league site. I don't like the way they present the box scores. I much prefer how TSN does it. What do you think of the new rules? My first chance to talk to you about this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm of the opinion that tweaking's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, it's our game. And I understand the people that are worried that, you know, this is all being done with an eye to going to the American rules, essentially. I don't think that. Like, I think the CFL will always be the CFL. But if you can tweak in some ways, and trust me, I am not here to support the Rouge. If I didn't shed a tear when I heard that the Rouge essentially is a relic now. So, you know, honestly, one of the things that really caught my eye, and I don't know why it bothered me as much as it did, was the benches on the same side of the field. I hated that. To me, it looked like amateur hour. And I get, like, at BC Place, they wanted to put in some almost field-level suites, if you will, and they saw it as a sell opportunity.
Yep.
I don't know. And I understand, like, the long change and trying to get guys in and out of the game and all that kind of stuff. Like,
the problems that called BC, Ottawa, I think there was another stadium that if you needed to make a defensive substitution when the offense was driving, that guy had to run like 90 yards just to make the
wind sprint just to get into the play.
Just get against the 20-second play clock, which...
Yeah, you're asking these 300-pounders
and that's why the referee wouldn't spot the ball for play quickly, because he's seeing guys run from 80, 90 yards away as part of the substitution package. The benches will be on opposite sides next year as well. NFL South of the Line, we talked about it yesterday with Captain Greg Bell. Huge game. Terrific Hawk season so far. Seattle in Los Angeles. Seahawks versus Rams at SoFi. The winner takes first place in the NFC West 10 games in. Could even take first place in the NFC period, depending on what Philadelphia does. Should be a good one.
Think they can come out swinging and put up 2 touchdowns in the first 5 minutes like they did last week
against
Arizona? Probably not, but what a start last week.
You want to take the over on Seahawks first quarter based on recent evidence. And boy, Fun afternoon of football, everybody, on Sunday. There are some terrific games in the NFL. We talked about it yesterday. Kansas City, Denver, Philly, Detroit. This Seahawks-Rams game, Grey Cup going on as well. So just marvelous afternoon of football on Sunday. Speaking of Mickey Mouse, and I talked to somebody who covered the game last night, Toronto's BMO Field has got to be the worst World Cup venue. It looks like a glorified high school stadium. If sporting teams who can attract like 3, 5, 10,000 fans want to build these prefabs, like Willoughby, these prefab stadiums, fair enough. But at the highest levels, it just looks so off. They sold it out yesterday. Good for them for these friendly against Ecuador. I just hate how they call it our national soccer stadium. It's awful. Like BC Place is 10 times better than what they're playing in Toronto. And that's why, of course, BC Place has more World Cup games. Winds up being a 0-0 tie in a friendly. The game ruined by a controversial red card to Whitecaps midfielder Ali Ahmed in the 6th minute. Ahmed started. He got all sorts of praise this week from head coach Jesse Marsh. Even got teased a little bit, saying, why are people in Vancouver talking so much about Thomas Muller and not as much about Ali Ahmed?
The studs were high. I get it. Like, a card? Sure. 1,000% all day, every day. But A, it's a friendly, 5 minutes in, and with no VAR,
exactly.
Like, you have to be
$1,000,000%
right.
sure.
And
because the whole notion, like Ecuador traveled a long, long way to get a test. The whole idea for like the reason they set up these friendlies is so that both teams can get a full, legitimate test over 90 minutes. As soon as you give a guy a red card, you completely scuttle the exercise. Now it becomes, okay, how do we play in the unlikely event somebody gets a red card in a World Cup and we get to play 11 on 10 or 10 on 11?
Canada was plucky, and sure, like, give them credit, but the people that showed up, the television audience, and you're right, the opposition, they come wanting a match.
Yeah.
And to have a guy showing a straight red on that, no.
It's very silly. Canadians did well to keep it a scoreless draw. Ex-cap Richie Larea, man of the match for his defensive work at left back. Surrey's Joel Waterman at center back, also garnering praise, keeping the Ecuadorians off the score sheet. Canada faces number 18 in the world, Venezuela, Tuesday in Florida. Marsh says that ex-Whitecap Maxime Crépeau, who says he's out at Portland with the Timbers, will play in that game. They're also hoping that new center back Alfie Jones via England and Middlesbrough can play as well. He was supposed to take his citizenship oath on Tuesday or Wednesday. It got delayed, and that meant he was ineligible to play, this new Canadian. Mariners and Jays fans now united in outrage. Cal Raleigh somehow loses the American League MVP to New York Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge. And this was not a case of Eastern bias. Both New York voting members of the Baseball Writers voted for Raleigh. And the Eastern time zone voters were split 7-7. Voters in the Pacific time zone voted 5-1 for Raleigh. The culprit, Jeff?
Middle America.
Central time zone and Texas. Maybe with an axe to grind against a Mariner, too, those Texas voters. They voted 9-1 for Judge.
What was 17-13 ultimately the first place ballots?
And look, if the exercise is who is the better hitter, that is Aaron Judge unquestionably. He hit .331 this year to Raleigh's .247. He beat him by nearly 200 points in OPS, and yes, his counting stats look good because he missed a month, and that clearly dampened his totals. But this was the best hitting season by a catcher and or a switch hitter ever. Like, if you can't give Cal Raleigh the MVP in a season like that, when can you give a catcher the MVP? When can you give a switch hitter the MVP? I was astonished. I thought it was in the bag for Raleigh, especially because Judge has won one before. Blake was talking about voter fatigue.
Did you see Judge in his acceptance wearing the turtleneck with the chain looking like the Rock?
I didn't know.
Oh, lots of people were having fun with that.
Oh, a Rocky.
Yeah, it looked like, anyways.
Well, he's not the people's MVP. That's Cal Raleigh.
The award isn't for best catcher in the big leagues.
No.
But I'm on Cal's side here. Like, I was disappointed that he didn't win, but I wasn't shocked. And obviously, you don't want to take anything away from the season that Aaron Judge has had, the career that he's had.
But defense matters too, and he had a great season. Raleigh did behind the dish. It is the most demanding, if not important, position to play in all of baseball. Typically, catchers sacrifice something at the plate because of the beating they take behind the plate. I thought this was flat out robbery. I was so disappointed for Raleigh and for Mariners fans. And of course,
a sentence never uttered before, I think.
No. See, Jeff's an M's fan. We're on different sides of the divide here. Blake and I long say we're Jays fans. We hold nothing against the Mariners, no quarrel other than when they play each other like they did in the ALCS this year.
Throughout that whole series, because I haven't hosted with you since. I've been on in hits, but I just, it took me back to the day that we did the radio show on the street out front at 969 Robson. We were so far ahead of the curve, Matt.
We were.
In taking sides in that battle.
So the story there was it was a nothing show in July or August of the summer. We did a promotion that year for reasons that are still unclear to me, where we took the show and did it right out front of the building at 969 Robson. On Lions games days,
I think
was
you're
it?
right. No, that rings a bell.
I think it's because we were giving away Lions tickets to people who came up. So we're outside of the old Victoria's Secret. I mean, what a backdrop for a sports show. And nothing was going on. And I said to Jeff, I'm going to kick this show in the butt. I'm going to talk about the Blue Jays and Mariners series in Seattle and frame it in patriotic terms. And, well, I still hear about that from M's fans, Jeff.
It was good. We had fun. It was a good segment. And but yes, when this dividing line that was drawn when they went at it in the playoffs, and I just think that was almost a decade ago that you and I were.
Jeff. I think it was like 13, 14 years ago. It was a long time ago. Raleigh was also denied the Gold Glove. Of course, Kirk and Clement were for the Blue Jays, and the Jays, John Skipper somehow lost out on the Manager of the Year voting this year. So bottom line, it was a horrible year for American League voters, is what I'm going to say. They got it wrong across the board. Lastly, Jeff and I both love us some golf, and we love our Canadians on tour and our BC boys. Abbotsford's Adam Hadwin, looking to keep his tour card, was the first-round leader at the Bermuda Championship. He followed that up today with a 5-under second round that included a hole-out eagle. He dunked it on the par 4 sixth. And Jeff, I've read he has never lost his tour card since earning it in 2014. But he's number 147 on the FedEx Cup list heading into, two events left in this season.
Yeah.
So what does he got to do here?
Well, a win would obviously cure all of that.
Yeah. Win and you're in.
And so you're right. He backs up his opening round 65 with a 66. It was out early on Friday. And so as we sit here, he's got the lead. And look, the Butterfield Bermuda Championship is not a star-studded event. So Adam Hadwin's going to have to fend off the likes of Chandler Phillips and Braden Thornberry and Noah Goodwin. But given the season he's had, that's the company that he's keeping. And so he knows the stakes here, and it's great to see him put a couple of really solid rounds together. Now the stakes go up here as he heads to the weekend, and that's where he's going to have to draw on the experience of the one win that he's got at that level, playing in final groups in years gone by, shooting 59 as he did down in the desert. So fingers crossed for Adam Hadwin. It's good to see. Surrey's Adam Svensson in the same boat in as much as he needed a win here in one of these late events. It doesn't look like he's going to make the cut.
Svensson was pretty good last week until the final round.
Yeah.
Blake and I often talk about, man, these Canadians are always in position early Saturday, even it's just those Sunday rounds. He was asked, does he enjoy the challenge, and responded in a sick, sadistic way. Sure. Good humor there from the pride of Abbotsford. Final results of the Redwoods Golf Course poll question from Thursday. We asked you, is this season pushing Quinn Hughes out the door, yes or no? What did the people vote, Jeff?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, they did. Percentage?
62.
87. Mike, the last few have. Now, Mike, that's unfair. 2 years ago did not help push him out the door. That was a good season for him. Fred, he loves Vancouver and will sign another contract with the team. We are a couple of players away from a championship, and he surely knows that. Okay? P. Bats, as outstanding as he is, it may be for the better. It would almost force a rebuild, get picks and young prospects for him, and move on. And Martin says he needed an excuse to go, and we're giving him one. The rebuild is coming. Did not note an error or an omission from yesterday's program. I'm sure there was one, Jeff, but of course the shows are always perfect when you're in for Blake. So we will bid them adieu and wish them well into the weekend. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Live noon Pacific time weekdays. We will be early again on Monday with the early start from South Florida. And, of course, please do support those community sponsors we keep telling you about. And, of course, you're going to want to watch and listen to Jeff on Rink Wide Vancouver after the game here tonight and, of course, after the game on Sunday as well. Keep it local.